please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody, it's time for another series preview today, and we are finishing up our Western Conference previews with the 5-seed Edmonton Oilers against the 12-seed Chicago Blackhawks. Before I begin, I just ask that you please hit that subscribe button if you're new, and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, as those likes go a long way in helping the channel and are very much appreciated. But let's get into it here, starting with Edmonton, the number 5 seed in the Western Conference. They finished the year with a 37, 25, and 9 record, good enough for 83 points on the season. Against Chicago this year in the regular season, Edmonton went 1-2-0 versus the Blackhawks. So there's really not a ton to read into the season series because obviously playoffs are a whole different ballgame, but Chicago and Edmonton did play some very competitive games this year for sure, which should make for a good playoff series. The Oilers were right around mid-pack, both offensively and defensively this season, scoring 3.14 goals per game, which was 14th in the NHL, and giving up 3.03 goals against per game, which was 15th in the NHL. So right around mid-pack in both of those categories. Where they especially excelled, however, was special teams. Edmonton's special teams were absolutely outstanding. They had the best power play in the NHL at 29.5% in the regular season, which is, I mean, unreal. To be close to 30% over the course of a whole regular season. Now, obviously, this season did get cut short by around 10 or so games, 10 to 12 games for different teams, but almost 30% on the power play is incredibly good, and they absolutely had the best power play in the NHL this season. Their penalty kill was just as good, though, at 84.4% on the PK, which was second in the NHL. So absolutely excelled at special teams in general this year, and that's obviously a really good thing to have on your side going into the playoffs, is that they can win and lose, or they can win games with their special teams, which would be huge in the playoffs. Their leading goal scorer this year was Leon Draisaitl, who had a monster season. He had 43 goals on the year. Huge season for Draisaitl. He also led the team in points with 110 points, and he is a finalist for MVP. Obviously, those numbers show you why. It was not Connor McDavid, who also had a very good season, but it was not Connor McDavid who was dominant for the Oilers this year. It was Leon Draisaitl, and he just had an incredibly good season. And their leading penalty minute getter was none other than Zach Kassian, with 69 penalty minutes on the season. Absolutely no surprise there. Kassian is a big, rugged, tough customer, and has been for his entire career, so not surprising to see him leading the way as far as the penalty minutes are concerned. Moving on now to Chicago. Chicago finished the season with a record of 32, 30, and 8, 72 points. They are the 12 seed in the West, and they were not going to make the playoffs if this season had continued normally. That's why they're the 12 seed. They were pretty far out of it, but now because of the 24-team format, they got themselves back into it. Like we said, they did have a pretty good season series with the Oilers this year, going 2-1-0 in their 3 games against them. So winning record against the Oilers in the regular season. We'll see if that plays any role in how the playoffs go or not. But Chicago, pretty well mid-pack offensively and defensively as well. A little bit lower than the Oilers, but still in that middle, 10, outside the top 10, but not in the bottom 10 of the league. 2.97 goals per game, which was 18th in the NHL this year, and 3.06 goals against per game, which was 16th in the NHL this year. So pretty middle of the road there in both categories for the Blackhawks. Their power play, though, was atrocious. Really bad power play. I believe the worst power play out of any team in the playoffs. 15.2% at 28th in the league this season. just really, really bad on the man advantage, and that's something that could definitely hurt them in the playoffs if they're unable to take advantage of those manpower opportunities. But maybe they can turn it around. They do have talented players, so with guys like Kane and DeBrincat and Taves and Kubalik, like guys like that, they should have a better power play than this. But it was a rough time with the man advantage this season. Their penalty kill is good, however. They do have a top 10 penalty kill at 82.1% on the season on the PK. So obviously that's good. They're able to kill off a large majority of their penalties that they do take. And they're not a team that takes a lot of penalties in general. They're not one of the tougher teams or a team that's in the box a lot as far, comparatively to other NHL teams. So, it's good to have a good penalty kill. That could help in the playoffs a lot. Their leading goal scorer this season was Patrick Kane with 33 goals. I think at this point it's clear Kane is by far their best player. He had 33 big ones this year. Nice season for him again. He also led the team in points with 84 points on the season. So another great season for Patrick Kane. The rest of that team, I think, needs to kind of get it going and offensively, and someone's got to come up and be able to play with him. But Kane was by far their leader offensively this season, and their leading penalty minute getter was actually Jonathan Taves, which is kind of weird when you think about it. But like I said, they're not an overly physical team. They're not a team that gets involved in after the whistle stuff and a lot of fights or anything like that. So they don't really rack up a whole lot of penalty minutes. Taves had 48 penalty minutes this season, and that was enough to lead the team. Obviously, no one got to 50. So while it's a little weird seeing Jonathan Taves as a penalty minute leader, it's also not, just because of how few penalties this Blackhawks team does take. So as far as prediction goes, I'm sticking with Edmonton in 4. I just think the Oilers are the much better team here. Chicago, obviously, they still have Taine and Caves. They still have Duncan Keith. Corey Crawford, we don't know what's going on fully with him. He's been unfit to participate as far as training camp's concerned. If Crawford doesn't play, Chicago's done. I mean, I'll just straight out say that. If Crawford can't play, then Chicago is just straight out done. But if Crawford plays, that does give Chicago a little bit more of a chance. But in the end, I just think with Draisaitl, with McDavid, with the Oilers' improved forward depth around them, with their much improved defense from where they were a couple of years ago, I just think the Oilers are the significantly better team and that they're going to win this series. I gave Chicago a game. I think it goes 4. I'm not picking a sweep here, but I do think the Oilers are going to get it done and move on. And we'll see what actually happens when the games are played in August. So overall, this might be a pretty fun series to watch, which, maybe as far as, 5-12, you see the big gap in the seeding, you think this might be a blowout series. I don't think it's going to be a blowout series. I don't think Chicago has the defense to shut down Draisaitl and McDavid, which, again, leads to why I think the Oilers are going to win. Chicago's defense core, when you look at it on paper, is not very good. They actually played better this season than I would have thought that they would have, because that core on paper is not great. But you've got aging stars in Taves and Kane and Keith. Kane's still producing at an extremely high level. Taves didn't reach 20 goals this year, I believe, for the first time in his career, and he's definitely shown some decline over the last couple of years. Duncan Keith has absolutely showed some decline. He's not the elite number 1 defenseman that he used to be. Brent Seabrook is, so just declined at this point that he's not even really, he's kind of an afterthought on this team at this point, because he's just, he had major injury issues this year, but even before the injuries, his play was not good. So these are certainly not the Chicago Blackhawks that were winning Stanley Cups back in the mid-2010s. This is a team that's a 12 seed for a reason. But they can still certainly give the Oilers a fight, and they can definitely probably win a game, maybe 2, and be in the series. But at the end of the day, I just think the Oilers are the superior team, and I think you saw that all season long, where the Blackhawks were out of playoff position for pretty much this entire season. And I don't think the Blackhawks really even had much of a shot to make the playoffs had things continued normally. And the Oilers were one of the best teams in the Pacific Division, and they were competing for that Pacific Division title with Vegas. I think Vegas was going to win it no matter what, but the Oilers were right there in the top three, and they had a good season this year. Again, their defense is significantly improved. They've got better forward depth, especially after the trade deadline, bringing in Athanasiou and Ennis. I like this Oilers team, and I think they could really make some noise this year. And then obviously they're led by Draisaitl and McDavid, who are two elite superstars leading the way for them. So that's my take on the Oilers and Blackhawks series. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our donation link, our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.